Hey, what's going on, everyone? I'm Eric Shea, and I'm here with another review from Weird Science DC Comics, and today we'll be looking at Future State Suicide Squad number 1. For our first story, we're in the year 2030, and beyond that aspect, things get confusing as hell because we're in Earth-3 and see the Justice Squad take on Sinestro, Brainiac, and Mongal. The reason this is so confusing is because we're not given any information going in as per usual with Future State, but since we're on Earth-3, it's even more ambiguous because are we dealing with Earth-3 characters or Earth-0 characters in this universe? Leading into this issue, we've seen from Future State the Flash that Checkmate deployed Task Force X into Earth-3 in the year 2027. And we saw from Future State Shazam a flashback panel of Amanda Waller talking about going to war. Now, Shazam took place in 2029, but since it was a flashback/nightmare scene, we don't really know when this took place. Getting to the issue at hand, though, we have the Justice Squad. And that team is made up of Wonder Woman, who's actually Hypnotic Woman in disguise, Martian Manhunter, who's actually Clayface 8 or 12, the story's not quite sure and it doesn't really seem to matter, Batman, who's William Cobb the Talon, Flash, whose name is Bolt, Aquaman, who's now the Fisherman, and Superman. And when I say Superman, I mean the Superman of this era, who's not Clark or John. No, this seems to be Connor Kent or possibly his Earth-3 counterpart created by Brian Michael Bendis in his Young Justice series, known as Luthor L. Now, am I reading too much into this? Is Robbie Thompson playing things too loose and maybe doesn't know enough about Earth-3 when he was writing this? There's moments in this that can make you go either way with whether this is Connor Kent from our Earth or his Earth-3 counterpart. Like when the Justice Squad are taking on Mongal, Brainiac, and Sinestro. At the end of this fight, Brainiac's severed head before he dies actually goes to Connor Kent and says, "I have fought many Supermen across the universe, across the multiverse, across many timelines. None are like you, a clone of the world's greatest hero and the world's most terrifying villain. I hope before your master finishes her grand plan, you remember who you really are. You're not a Luthor. You're a Kent." Now, if this is Brainiac of Earth-3 who's a hero, is this some serious shade being thrown at Superman before he dies right now, saying, you were just like Ultraman instead of a true hero like Lex Luthor, Alexander Luthor in this world? Or is this a regular Brainiac just trying to give hope to the Supermans to give him an idea of like who he could be in the long run and how he's going down the wrong path now? It's all up in the air because even with the rest of the team, like I said, they are made up of villains who are trying to look like the heroes of our Earth. And Amanda Waller, who is from our Earth, who has come to Earth-3, she tells Connor later on that these characters are all villains. But they are all villains in our world, being a counterpart kind of thing. They should be heroes. See, it's all up in the air, and it's playing both sides, and it just becomes a very confusing mess by the end, and there is something here to this story. I'm a sucker for anything Earth-3 and any kind of evil doppelganger, evil twin aspect. I just need there to be some rules and have an idea that the writer knows what they're doing going in, because if you go back and look at how the Young Justice was played and Brian Michael Bendis taking our team over to that Earth-3, he didn't seem to know a lot about Earth-3 or even the Young Justice characters, so the stuff he was doing was really loosey-goosey and didn't make a lot of sense in the end. The premise for this issue, all confusing stuff aside, is the idea that Amanda Waller needs to get a piece of tech. And the last bit is from Brainiac, who they get it from, in order to complete her mission here and create what she calls home base. Now, going just by the art that we have on the page here, home base just seems to be a Hall of Justice on top of a holographic globe. We don't know exactly what it means, but we do know that the Suicide Squad from our prime Earth are here and they need to take Amanda Waller back in order to save their world. We don't know why, but that team is made up of Peacemaker, Cheetah, a Parademon, Black Manta, Lorzod, Mirror Master, and Evil Star. And for whatever reason, we lose Black Manta right away because he starts bleeding to death, coughing up blood. For whatever reason, the Suicide Squad from our Earth can't be in this Earth's atmosphere. They have a limited amount of time they can be here, even though Amanda Waller, who's here, she seems to be fine. And Connor Kent, if he is from our Earth, he seems to be fine too. We don't know why the Suicide Squad can't be on Earth-3, but they have a limited amount of time to get Amanda Waller and get back before they themselves die, even though Black Manta seemed to have even less time than anybody else. But with this, we also have the idea that if Connor Kent can't get the rest of his team together, these villains turned pseudo-heroes, these psychopaths, as Amanda Waller calls them, she says we can always have Task Force Z that they can jump back on, who are the Crime Syndicate. And apparently the Crime Syndicate are dead, and she says that we can control them as good soldiers with the Black Lantern ring. Connor says that the ring can't be controlled, it can't be relied on, it's too dangerous. And the way they're depicted here, the Crime Syndicate, It looks like they're in water tubes back to tanks, but they seem to have air going to them in some kind of tube, so I don't know if they're dead, alive in stasis, and if this is a Black Lantern ring from our Earth or Earth-3, and if it's an Earth-3 Black Lantern ring, we don't know what that does. So everything is all up in the air right now. The only thing you can really take from this issue with any kind of certainty is that the Suicide Squad are here to bring back Amanda Waller, and the fate of their Earth depends on doing so. And that's really disappointing because on top of wanting to see a Suicide Squad story, you're not getting a lot of the Suicide Squad, and having an Earth-3 backdrop, I was all excited. But you don't know what anything means because you don't know what the rules are in the year 2030 or what Robbie Thompson is playing with his story here. So I guess we have to wait for the next issue of this to get any kind of real answers, but I'm not sure if we're going to get anything because you have one issue left. How much can you really tell in that? We do have a backup to this story, and it is a bit more enjoyable than the first story, where we're in the 853rd century with the DC 1 million Justice Legion Alpha characters, and this story isn't pulling any punches because immediately you have a disturbance in the galaxy where Mogo is destroyed. And this brings the original Superman, now known as Superman Prime, out of this hibernation within the Fortress of Solitude that's inside the sun, out to see what the problem is, and he's immediately attacked and defeated by a group known as the Unkindness. And that group is made up of the last members of the Lords of Chaos and the 7 Deadly Sins. The problem here is, in this far future, the universe has moved beyond magic, and because of that, they have no idea how to combat it, which takes our Justice Legion Alpha to the planet Kahndaq to see Black Adam. Like the rest of the universe, though, Black Adam too has left magic in the past, and now uses technology to keep himself alive. But because of the Wonder Woman of this era being pregnant with Black Adam's baby, the one-time champion of Shazam decides to call out the magic word one more time to defend his lady love and his unborn child. But even that doesn't look like it'll be enough against this threat. Thankfully, our backup ends with Gold Beetle, a Booster Gold and Blue Beetle amalgam showing up from somewhere or somewhen and saying that she knows how to save the universe. That's it for Future State Suicide Squad number 1, and really, this is a mixed bag issue in more ways than one because while I'm not a huge fan of the art in the Suicide Squad story, and I think the story itself is overly confusing, I do like the backup, but even that, I don't know if everybody's going to be able to get a lot of enjoyment from it because it really depends, in my mind, if you know the DC 1 million characters in the Justice Legion Alpha. If you're not a fan of that, know anything about that, I don't know how much you're going to take from that. I just know that it looks better and it's better written than the Suicide Squad story all around. Now, hopefully, with the next issue, we'll get more answers and things will be made clear. But as it stands right now, first story is just meh, with possibilities in the background depending on where Robbie Thompson goes. And the second story, with art and story all tied in one, is where it's at in my mind, but that's just me. That's all I've got for this issue, but make sure you hit like and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Eric Shea, and this is Weird Science DC Comics.